Welcome to the preview for Chapter 23, Section 2. Chapter 23, the New Deal, where we are exploring the impetus for FDR's New Deal legislations, and we're also taking a look at the impact that the policies of the New Deal had on the American nation. And in Section 2, we're looking actually at the second New Deal taking hold. The objectives for Section 2, I can describe the purpose of the second New Deal. I can describe New Deal programs for farmers. I can describe New Deal programs aimed at assisting young people and professionals. And I can describe labor and economic reforms carried out under the second New Deal. Let's take a look then at our terms and names. We have Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the First Lady, social reformer and a political advisor. We have the Works Progress Administration, or the WPA, which was a New Deal jobs program. We have the National Youth Administration, program to provide aid and jobs to young people. The Wagner Act, which was a law designed to protect workers' rights. And we have the Social Security Act, a program that provided aid to people with disabilities and pensions for retired workers. Let's move back to our objectives and take a look at the content of Section 2 as it pertains to these objectives. So, what did voters think about the New Deal? Well, the economy improved in the first 2 years that Roosevelt was president, but it didn't improve much. But still the New Deal remained popular. So in the midterm elections of 1934, the Democrats actually increased their majority in Congress. So as a result of that, FDR launched a second wave of reforms. The second wave is what's referred to as the second New Deal. And they were designed to help poor people. Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife, First Lady, traveled around the country, and she reported to the president on the suffering of the poor, and she spoke up for women and minorities. The election of 1936 was an overwhelming victory for Roosevelt and the Democrats and the New Deal. What's also significant about the 36 election is that it marked the first time most African Americans voted Democratic, and it was the first time that labor unions supported a single candidate, and they supported FDR. Now, one of the pieces of the second New Deal is help for farmers. So things were still tough for farmers. And remember, the AAA that had helped farmers initially had been struck down by the Supreme Court. So Congress now passed new laws to replace the AAA. And one of the programs paid farmers to use soil conservation measures in managing their land. The second AA was passed without the tax that had made the first one unconstitutional. And other laws helped sharecroppers and tenant farmers. They provided loans to help farmers buy land. New laws also helped migrant workers by providing better housing for them. Now, Roosevelt also extends relief in other areas. A new agency called the Works Progress Administration, the WPA. It had as its mandate to create jobs as quickly as possible. The WPA used millions of workers to build airports, roads, libraries, schools, hospitals, even sewing groups that made clothes for the needy. Now, some people were critical of the WPA as a make-work program that created useless jobs just to give people a paycheck. But the WPA created works of lasting value, and it also gave working people a sense of hope and dignity along with their paychecks. The WPA also employed teachers, writers, artists, actors, musicians, and it made a special effort to help women, minorities, and the young. Another program, the National Youth Administration, the NYA, provided aid and part-time jobs to many high school and college students. This allowed them to get an education even in tough economic times. Now, there were also labor and other economic reforms. The second New Deal created reforms for labor. Congress passed the National Labor Relations Act to replace the NIRA, which the Supreme Court struck down. This law is often called the Wagner Act. The Wagner Act supported workers' rights to collective bargaining. It also banned unfair labor practices. And the Wagner Act set up the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, to enforce these reforms. 1938, we have the Fair Labor Standards Act, which set maximum hours and a minimum wage for the first time. And the hours at that time were set at 44 hours. It also banned child labor in factories. Last significant program is the Social Security Act, and it's considered to be one of the most important achievements of the New Deal. It had three components. Old age insurance, that is a supplemental retirement plan that provided funds from what workers and employees paid into the system. It had unemployment compensation, that is payments to workers who lost their jobs. And it provided aid to the disabled and families with children. This helped people who could not be expected to work. One last reform is the Rural Electrification Administration, the REA, which extended electricity to rural areas. And that concludes our preview for Chapter 23, Section 2.